Hello, Greg Drescher of Warren County Public Schools here. I'd like to talk with you a few minutes about tiered starts for our schools next year. The first thing to answer is why we're taking a look at tiered starts. There are two main reasons. The first being budget and financial. At this point, the current number of buses that we have will soon not be able to keep up with the demands in transportation. The most immediate demand is the opening of the new middle school, and we also have plans to begin transporting students from our non-traditional programs. And to do this under our current system, we're going to need 2 more buses, 2 more drivers, and the cost is close to $250,000. And that's a significant amount of money, especially in this budget year. In addition to that, budget constraints for a number of years have not allowed us to replace buses at the recommended levels. And currently we have 16 buses that are at their recommended limit. Now, buses are still being driven safely and they are doing well, but if tiered starts were to be used, this would reduce our total number of buses, and it would mean that our current fleet would last a few more years without having to buy additional buses. And just for reference, a bus is about $109,000. The second reason that we would take a look at tiered starts is that currently we have 27 bus runs that are over 60 minutes of ride time for our students, and one has a maximum of over an hour and a half. And on the other end of that, students are currently being let off at their schools 45 or 50 minutes before school actually starts, and then some students wait that long at the end of the day. So for contention of our students, that's a long time. For those reasons, we're taking a look at tiered starts. What tiered starts would allow us to do is use all of our bus resources in a more efficient manner. We'd be able to take all of our buses and drivers and concentrate them on half of our student population, and then once all of those students are at school or taken home, we would concentrate on the second half of the population. And we took a look at a variety of options or how that would work, and the considerations were primarily on what is the impact on students, families, and staff, and we needed to consider all of those things as we were considering tiered starts. We don't want to do anything that causes an upsettedness to any of those groups, including ourselves. So here's the proposal. All buses would begin used to pick up high school and middle school students first. And what that does is that shortens the ride times for students and allows students to be dropped off at a more narrow window, reducing the wait time in schools. So instead of starting with a 50 to 45 minute wait for some of our students, the maximum wait time would be 20 minutes. And so it would be a 20-minute window to drop off. And that's a benefit to students and to the school in terms of organization of staff and then just the management of students during non-learning time. Once high school and middle school would be completed, then the second run would happen for elementary students. Again, shortening ride times and wait times. There's another plus here is that we'd be able to be a little more flexible with other types of trips that schools require. Field trips, sports trips, special needs buses would be actually half of their current number because we would be separating between high school and middle school and elementary runs. And VDOE, Virginia Department of Education, their analysis of the cost per student on buses, it actually is less for a tiered start grouping. So those are some of the things that tiered starts would allow. So here's what the proposed tiered start would look like. See on the left-hand side what our current times are. High school, let me pop up there just a second. High school starts at 8:20 currently, middle school starts at 8:25, and elementary starts at 8:30. And you can then see the end times: high school 3:25, middle 3:15, and elementary 3:10. What the proposal is that our high school and middle schools would open at 8 o'clock. That would be the start of the first period. We need a 1 hour time in order to do this, and that means that elementary would start at 9 o'clock. So the first thing to take a look at is how different that is from current times. And you can see that it means starting high school and middle school 20 and 25 minutes earlier than they currently do, and that means starting elementary schools 15 minutes later than they currently do. Now, we're still in some discussion about the length of the day for high schools. So I've got two times there for us to look at. Currently, high school gets out at 3:25 and middle gets out at 3:15. We're looking at an end time for the schools to be 2:35 to 2:45. Probably that 2:45 time is where we're leaning, so but I put both of them on there just to let us know. When we start to organize for those routes, our transportation folks are thinking that we may not need that full hour in the afternoon for elementary, based on the number of buses that are used. So the elementary time would be extended a little bit, but it would end at 3:35. So from 9 to 3:35. So it would start 15 minutes later in the morning and go 25 minutes later in the afternoon. So it extends the school day about 10 minutes from what it currently is. Now let's take a quick look at the impact of doing tiered starts. As I mentioned a few minutes ago, a 1 hour time is needed between the two runs in order to be able to do this. So that's the difference in times. So school start and end times will be different than they currently are. And when things are different, that always causes change. High school starts 20 minutes earlier, middle school 25 minutes earlier, and elementary school 15 minutes later than current times. And on the other end, high school would end 45 minutes earlier than it currently does. Middle school would end 30 minutes earlier, and elementary would end 25 minutes later. So those are changes. For 45% of our students that ride buses, there is a significant difference, and that is that most students will have shorter bus rides. Pickup times in the mornings will change, but we don't anticipate big changes there, simply because that's going to adjust with the time that school starts. With high school and middle school students leaving school 30 to 40 minutes earlier than current times, there may need to be some adjustment about bus stop coverage or what happens when students get home at that time a little earlier than they have been in past years. Bus drop-off at the high school and middle school would start around 7:40. And for walkers and car riders, it would be preferred that students not come to school before 7:30. But we're looking at how schools can work with families that have special circumstances. So that's a change. Bus drop-off at elementary will start at 8:40. For walkers and car riders, the preferred time would be not to be dropped off before 8:30. But again, schools are looking at ways to work with families that have special circumstances. So we're trying to cover as many of those concerns as we can. There may need to be some adjustment in childcare from current practices, with elementary starting 15 minutes later in the morning and 20 minutes or so different minutes in the afternoon. So we realize this. Having said all this, we need to know, or I need to know, what you think about this proposal. Are there components of it that seem like if we tweak it a little bit, it would work really well, or are there things in this proposal that you just think needs to be different or won't work at all? It'd be very helpful for me to know that. What's happening at this point is we're presenting this to the school board, and then we're going to have about a month's time period for feedback and maybe make any tweaks or changes that would be helpful to the process. My email will be available either via Facebook, website, email to you all, just to let you know so that you have the opportunity to talk directly with me or contact me directly about any concerns that you may have about tiered starts. I thank you, and I look forward to hearing from you.